So, turning back now to the U.S.-Mexico border, despite the surge of migrants, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas would not call the situation a crisis during a hearing with lawmakers yesterday. Mireya Villarreal joins us now. Mireya, you visited some of the migrants who've been waiting for months now for someone to hear their case.
That's exactly right. So the Biden administration is slowly starting to let thousands of asylum seekers into the U.S. to wait out their cases. But that's a big change from the Trump era where they were forced to remain in Mexico. And still, there are a lot of people that are stuck in Mexico waiting right now. We went over the border to see firsthand exactly how they're living as they are waiting for their chance to seek asylum.
My dad was a drug dealer. My oldest brother was a drug dealer.
A reformed gang member turned ordained minister, Abraham Barbary crosses daily from Brownsville, Texas into Matamoros, Mexico, where he opened a Bible school and hip-hop church.
In between the songs, we would, share the good news, share the gospel.
In the last year, this father of four helped minister to thousands of migrants living in this makeshift camp near the international border. This was video taken 3 weeks ago outside the camp. And this is what it looks like today. It's been abandoned. Most of the migrants waiting here were allowed to cross into the U.S. to start the asylum process. But nearly 60 were left behind with nowhere to go when the camp was shut down by the Mexican government.
We were just waiting for those 56 asylum seekers to cross the border and close the shelter, because it's just a temporary shelter. But people started coming, into Matamoros, and people who were already here, and they just came, and we just couldn't, say no.
This is actually a church school that has now been converted into a shelter for migrants. Have a lot of people from a lot of different areas. One thing they have in common is they want to be able to have their chance to go into the U.S., ask for asylum. Ivan, ¿su amiga? So she said that's where she sleeps, and her friend Ivana sleeps there.
Schoolrooms are now bedrooms, and this parking lot is now a part-time playground. Everyone is hoping to explain why they deserve a chance at requesting asylum in the United States.
They say it's confusing. They want at least to be able to tell their story to someone in the government, and they're very frustrated because nobody is listening. I mean, their level of desperation is at an all-time high. When it comes to what's happening across the border, the influx of immigrants, is there an end in sight?
I don't think so, at least not for now. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to increase. Because right now, the people in South America, Central America, and south of Mexico, for some reason they think that the borders are going to be open.
Resources and money are exhausted in Mexico, and the government has little incentive to help the U.S. care for these migrants anymore.
Do you think that the Mexican federal government wants to help these people?
I don't think so. I really honestly think that because of these 3 years of very intense immigration processes and dialogues, I think that the Mexican government is tired of it.
Do you feel like it's your duty to do this?
So as a Christian, to me, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, right? I'm just doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing.
So we met a lot of migrants from Cuba, Latin America, an indigenous group from Chiapas, Mexico, who said they were fleeing cartel violence. Now, we understand right now the Biden administration, DHS, they are considering allowing some asylum seekers to cross through this port of entry in Hidalgo, Texas. But that process, again, will be very slow. And these people are very tired of waiting right now. Anne Marie?
So you mentioned that the Biden administration, may be starting or has already started to allow some migrants into the U.S. Just how many cases are still pending, though? And is there an end in sight for those who are arriving in Matamoros now?
So we don't have the exact number of asylum cases that were part of Remain in Mexico. What we do know is that there were 70,000 cases, 70,000 people that were forced to go back into Mexico to wait out their cases before the Biden administration took over. This was part of the protocols for Remain in Mexico. So we do understand that there are still thousands and thousands of people waiting over there for their chance. And the problem, I think, that we're seeing is that a lot of these people decided not to wait right on the border. They decided to go back into the interior of Mexico. So as they are getting word that the Biden administration is letting some of these asylum seekers in, more and more are coming to, the border area. and are trying to cross in, and the process is just very slow to allow them into the U.S. That's why there's a lot of frustration. And to tell you the truth, I'm not really sure this process will get any faster, because on top of the Remain in Mexico asylum seekers, you also have people that are now crossing the border illegally. For example, what we saw earlier this week, crossing the river. Those people are now bogging down the system as well, because they are additionally asking for asylum too. So it is a lot of stress on a system that was already stressed and overwhelmed.
Already sort of limping along. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas testified before lawmakers, before Congress yesterday. What main points did he focus on with lawmakers, and how is the Biden administration handling this situation?
I think you mentioned it earlier. Right now, he does not want to call this a crisis. I think he's very clear in pointing out that this is a mess that was left by the previous administration. So I think he was trying to explain, listen, we have to take our time. We have to have long-term solutions. And while we are attempting to try and ease what is happening along the border, we're looking into the future to try and figure out what agencies need to get involved in order for us to figure this out long-term. So that's, I think, the first thing he said. The other thing that was very telling is that he's made it clear, I don't expect things along the border to get better anytime soon. In fact, I think that they will worsen over the next 3 months. So look for a record number of migrants coming through at this point. It's a very frustrating situation, but we're trying to handle it. And he continued to tell them, we are doing the best that we can. We are giving the resources to Border Patrol as much as we can, but we are also running out of money there. We're having to shift funds from one place to another. So again, a lot of big points to talk about, but I think he was very clear in saying that this is far from over. This is something that we are going to have to continue to tackle.
And the other thing he talked about is something that we have been talking about throughout the week, is the influx of minors coming across the border, unaccompanied minors. The secretary talked about the fact that they are trying to get facilities together to house these minors in a safe way. What do we know about that? What do we know about the infrastructure? Any new plans that may be coming up?
You know, I think right now what we're seeing is a huge collaborative effort by the federal government and local nonprofit organizations. I mean, a good example is what we're seeing in Dallas this week. They had a convention center that is now being used as a shelter for now. And the reason why we are seeing these smaller facilities open up is because there's this feeling that they already know how to run this, right? So that convention center is used usually during natural disasters. We're talking about tornadoes, or let's just say hurricanes. That location opens up for people that need to leave their homes for whatever reason. So a process is already in place to put out cots, to serve meals, to make sure that they have showers and places to go to the bathroom. So all of that is already in place. If you have the government come in, for example, what we saw here along the border, and have to set up a whole new large facility on its own and bring in all that infrastructure, it makes it a very difficult situation. So I think we're going to continue to see a number of facilities open up around the country that are smaller, that can take these people in. For example, out of the California area, we're looking at they're looking at a facility that NASA owns. Again, they won't run this location. It'll be run by Health and Human Services or the Office of Refugee and Resettlement. But that's what they're looking at. We're looking at places that we can easily set up and send a couple of thousand young children quickly so that they have a place to stay.
Yeah, you know, those are the basics. A cot, some food, a roof over your head. That's great. That's good for adults, but children need so much more. Hopefully the push is also to get these kids connected with family members here in the U.S. where they can be safe and loved while they wait for the process to unfold, because it is grindingly slow. Mireya, thank you so much.